So hi everybody, welcome to today's NBS webinar introducing NBS Chorus Designer. The webinar is going to last maybe 30-40 minutes. Everyone's on mute, but we do encourage as many questions as possible. We'll answer all of the questions following the webinar. So today we've got two speakers, myself, Stephen Hamil, Innovation Director at NBS, and also Chris Dixon, Associate Architect and BIM Manager at Franklin Ellis Architects. So I'll talk about the Chorus Designer features, so set the context, and then we'll pass over to Chris. Tell the story of how Franklin Ellis Architects are now using this feature on projects. If you visit our website, thenbs.com, and just go into the sort of platform area there, you'll see that Chorus Designer is now highlighted as one of the sort of new angles for NBS Chorus. There's a page here where you can learn more about it. And also, if you come all across to the right-hand side, we've just redone our support area on all of the NBS plugins and the functionality associated with them. So a couple of areas of the website there that we'll send and sort of follow-up emails that will sort of recap on this webinar. And today's webinar is going to focus mainly on the functionality in the context of Autodesk Revit, but all of the principles that we show work for all of our plugins. So just a big thank you at the start of the webinar for our NBS partners, Autodesk, the guys at Graphisoft to develop the plugin for ArchiCAD, similar for Vectorworks, and also hot off the press in the last couple of weeks, we now have a plugin for Bentley Open Buildings Designer. So great work from Bentley there as well. So thank you to all of the NBS partners that have worked with us on this sort of interoperability. So we'll jump straight into Chorus now. And what I'm going to do is just go into a project and see that we've got a new permissions model when you're inviting colleagues, inviting external collaborators into your Chorus projects. So if we have a look at this project here, we've got three specifications. We've got an interior spec, an architectural spec, and also a set of project preliminaries. I come across to the team members, you'll see there's a new project role, which is designer, and that sits between reader and contributor. So if I come now and add a colleague to this project, let's go there. My colleague Paul Swaddle here, you can see across all three of these specifications, I'd like Paul to have no higher permission, so you can't edit any of the specifications, but you get the designer role so you can work with the specification in tools like Revit. Or you can also do what's called limited functionality, where you could say, I don't want Paul to have access to the interior spec, but I want him to have designer permissions for the architectural spec to make those annotations and link it to the drawings and schedules and reader permission to the prelims. So you've got that full flexibility in terms of access control. And there's a sort of support here which say exactly what each of these roles allow sort of users to do. Now let's just jump across to Autodesk Revit here. Here's the plugin on the right-hand side. The plugin would look the same in ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, Open Designer. And at the point of signing in, let's just put my password in here for NBS. Log in. If you subscribed to additional Chorus Designer licenses, you get this new dialog that comes up. And you get the option, would you like to log into Chorus here as a writer, which allows all features, creating new specifications, edit specifications, or would you like to log in just as a designer, which has limited features, such as making model associations, adding spec notes, viewing the guidance. So what we do here is we'll just come in as a designer. What you can do is see how many of your colleagues are logged in as well. You might have noticed there where I sort of logged in, it told me that one writer role had been taken, 4 were available, whereas 5 out of 5 are sort of logged in as a designer here. And you can also have a look at the active users. So go across the sort of colleagues which are sort of logged in on your sort of set of licenses here, and see that so one person's logged in as writer, 4 or 5 are logged in as designer. So imagine you've got a set of colleagues working on projects across the office. You've got the people that are writing specifications, but also that are coming in and working on sort of designer sort of type actions. So the key difference when you're logged in as a designer is that you can't edit the spec. So what I've got here is the sort of 3D model open on the left-hand side. I've got a specification on the right-hand side that's linked to the model. And if I come in now and say click on the flat roof and say jump to the plastic sheets, because I'm logged in as a designer, I can't come in and make any changes. You see this little purple toast coming up, saying you don't have permissions to edit this. So I can see the specification as I'm sort of putting things together. But whoever set up the access control sort of safe in the knowledge that only the people that they want to access and edit the specification can actually do that. Even though I'm logged in as designer, I can still access quite a lot of other associated NBS information. So if I jump across to the NBS technical guidance, I can see all of the guidance and then click on things like the standards as well. So all of the sort of supporting information from NBS, which I think like speaking to customers in the past, that they encourage people across the office to look at and read and sort of understand sort of specification considerations behind the scenes. That's all available. And also all the manufacturer product information as well. So that's there at your fingertips whilst you're doing the design with the designer sort of licenses. So that's all there just on the right-hand side. And another thing, even though you can't change the specification, if you are logged in as designer, you can add sort of spec notes. So I can come in here and say, is this definitely the correct spec? And then when you have this sort of design meetings, say on a Friday, get around the table, Teams meeting, you've got everything on the screen, you can go through the different notes that have been added, and the person responsible for owning the specification, and come in and see the notes that people have maybe added on the right-hand side. I'm going to use this opportunity also just to show some of the basic functionality around the plugin. I know there's probably people on the webinar today that already use the plugin and know all about it, but just in terms of some of the basic features, the first thing, as we've already seen, is the ease of which you can link objects together and then click on the objects. So like, for example, click on the ceiling and jump and see the specification for the equivalent specification clause. So clicking on the ceiling system, you can see that's been marked as complete. And before the objects are linked, the ability to link and annotate. So if I just jump across here and have a look at some of the annotated views here, you can see here that the mirror hasn't yet been annotated. It's not linked to the specification. You can come in and just sort of click on the object in Revit, and then you sort of go and find what you want to link it to. So the mirror has been specified, it's in the spec. If it wasn't, you add it and sort of to write it. But to do the link, you just click on this sort of 3 dots on the right-hand side here, say associate with model. What that's going to do is put these parameters from NBS into the object in the model for things like annotations and schedules. So you click associate now, and that pushes the information from NBS into the object. And then those parameters inside the object can be used however you want to set up your annotations. So you see here that for this particular sample set of documentation, we've used the classification code, the title, and the NBS suffix. And they're there inside. Just click on the object here. Okay. When I click on the mirror, you see the spec of the mirror there. But if I look at the sort of type parameters here, just go down the bottom, there's the properties that have been inserted. So if I had a sanitary ware schedule at the bottom, you'd see those as well. I think for the next thing I want to show, just demonstrate how, if the specification changes, how you can get notified about that and then push that information into the model. So to change the specification, I've got to log in as a writer and have permission to write the spec. Let's just change role here. And I'm going to log in now as a writer on this project. So what I'm going to do now is just demonstrate how, when the specification and the model become out of sync, how the NBS plugin can sort of help the user correct the problems and sort of fix them. I'm just going to sort of log out here and then log back in. So what I'm going to do now is just change some small things in the, I'm going to come in as a writer this time. I'm going to change the specification slightly and just make a small modification and show how that gets sort of the alert sort of comes up. So what we've got here is WC pan. So go and find it. Now, if this was completely removed from the specification, it would come up as an error because it's annotated over here and you'd want to come in and fix it. But for a small sort of change here, so let's just change the suffix from urinal 5 to sanitary ware 310. Just make it look exactly the same as all of the other annotations here. It's a trivial example, but what's in the sort of printed spec that the contractor is going to receive is now going to be different from the printed drawings. Create a level of confusion. Worst case situation, the wrong product getting queued or installed in the wrong place. I come across to this model report now. We get in the issues here, it'll tell you anything where something's now missing from the specification or missing from the model. But just on this warning, this is telling you, look, for the WC pan, which is this one here, the parameters no longer match. And then you just click this button here and it's going to change the parameter in Revit with what's now in the specification. So if you watch urinal 5 there and just come across there and say update, and it's going to fix that warning, and you can see urinal 5 is now changed to sanitary ware item F310. You've got a full set of coordinate, documentation, schedules, drawings. And if I actually just jump back across the course on the wide screen here, this dummy project I've been demonstrating this morning, you can download this from our website. Please pop it in the questions if you'd like to have a copy of all the specs. It's not just the specs that we've got on the website, but we've also got annotated drawings which you can download as well. So if I just come across and have a look at the sanitary ware package here, you can see a sort of PDF of what the finished specifications can look like. And then we've also got hyperlinks here to the drawings exported from the modeling tool. So if I jump across here, it just jumps up to a little sort of extranet, and here's a sort of typical drawing that's been exported from the 3D view in the schedule. So I just jump in there a little bit. You can see the classifications, the NBS clause title and the type code in both the schedule and the annotated 3D view. So I'm going to jump across now and speak to Chris to see this on a live project, not just sort of fictional project, which with me showing the sort of the features in a sort of fictional sense. And then after Chris is presented, we'll finish off with I'll just recap some of the hyperlinks where you can find out more. And as a reminder, yeah, please ask questions, give feedback, and we'll get back to you on any of this. Yeah, so that's the end of my part of the presentation. We're going to pass over now, and we're going to hear a customer story from Chris Dixon, Associate Architect and BIM Manager at Franklin Ellis Architects. Yeah, hi Chris. So thank you for joining us today. Is it a bit of background? Like Chorus has been out there for 2 or 3 years now and go and visit lots of customers and visit small practice with maybe 3 or 4 architects. They'll maybe have one person writing specifications, but then they'll have a busy period where they want 4 people to be there, sort of annotating drawings, getting all of the stuff out. And then visit a large practice with 300 architects. I've had the same feedback, that there's a certain amount of people that are writing the specifications, and then others that are spending like the majority of their time putting together drawings, schedules, modeling. Can you tell us how it works at Franklin Ellis, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we, as a practice, we like everybody to be designing and writing specifications. We don't tend to specialize in terms of, you know, some person writing the spec, somebody putting the drawings together. So we're all in and out of those various roles. I think you described it as wearing different hats at different periods. Yeah.
So just roughly, is it like for your own role, for example, how much as a percentage of it time do you spend writing specifications as opposed to deep in a tool like Revit?
Well, as an associate, I do like to spend time running projects, and when I'm running a project, then I'll tend to lead on the specification. But certainly, as I say, all of the members of the team will be writing specifications. And what we tend to do is we like to start the specification very early now at sort of stage 3. Often in outline, often as a schedule version that you can do from Chorus and output that early, but then keep that specification being developed as soon as we start putting the drawings together. So once we've got a drawing with something to tag, we don't use any other tags. We only use NBS tags on our drawings now. So as soon as we start tagging, we start writing the specification, having those clauses available.
And is it possible? Can you have a click on the sort of active users? How many? What was the ratio you decided on between sort of writer licenses and designer licenses?
Yeah, so you can see that we've had 4 writer licenses for the last couple of years, and with the launch of the designer licenses, we've now got 5 of those. So we've had a couple of weeks with that just to see how that works in practice, and we're finding that great. So you can see that I'm logged in twice. So I'm logged in, as you can see behind here. I'm logged in as myself as a writer on Edge, but I'm also logged in. So this Chrome here is the plugin in Revit. So I'm also logged in as a designer in Revit. So I can be associating model objects with the clauses inside Revit without taking another writer license. I wouldn't normally have both open. I've got both open, you know, to show today how it works. I'd normally tend to be in one or the other and switching between. So we'd be tagging stuff in Revit. If we get to an item that hasn't got a clause, we'd probably switch to Edge and log in as a writer and develop that clause. Often we'll just do the title and the prefix and suffix just to get something to tag on the drawing. Maybe come back in the afternoon once we've got a few empty clauses and, you know, fill those out, do a bit of research as we need to do sometimes on source or wherever, get those filled out. And then, you know, that clause is then ready for output in specification at some point.
And then will you share those sort of 10 licenses between 20 architects, and that means 10 people can go in at any one time, sort of thing?
Yeah, so we've got 30 technical staff, and everybody's in Chorus, everybody's been trained, and yeah, we never run into that situation where we've got 30 people demanding a license. You know, it's usually a handful. When we just had the 4 writer licenses, we'd often max those out, to be honest. So it's very handy having those additional designer licenses, which don't come at the same kind of cost to us, so that we can make sure that the people who are just doing the tagging in Revit can just have a designer license, whereas the people who are actually writing and drafting can use a writer license. As I say, that's usually the same people. We don't specialize, but you know, we just need a little bit of discipline to make sure that you're using the right license at the right time.
And then another thing, again, speaking to lots of practices over the last 2 or 3 years, is people tend to have a sort of standard approach for classification, either uniclass or cause. They have the titles, but the suffixes and the prefixes, I've seen people use locations, type A, type B, type C, little 3-digit codes. I mean, I've got a current project open here, but I'll show you a model. Sorry, get the right one. I'll show you a model tab. So I'll show you a model tab. This is the right one.
This is it's a kind of template that we have to show people how to set sheets out. So we've developed our tags. They're customized versions of NBS tags, and we use them along with legends, and I'll explain how that works. But as you mentioned, people use the prefixes and suffixes in different ways. So because we only use Uniclass at Franklin Ellis, we do get a little bit of resistance from contractors on that. So what we're doing is a kind of hybrid. So we're using the Uniclass side of Chorus, but we're giving the contractor a handhold by using the prefix. So if I just go into this viewport here and click on this object, you'll see that the NBS Chorus prefix, we're actually using a cause reference as part of the type mark. So that's a typical type mark, block 002, you know, that's an aerated block. And, you know, that in the cause system, that would sit in F10. So we're just giving it a little prefix with a cause reference just to help the contractors. And they find that really helpful because a lot of their subcontractors are still using cause references, and it's easier for them to kind of divide work up and package it up and send it out with a cause reference. But at the end of the day, the primary reference for the computer is the Uniclass reference up there. And then for the suffixes, that tends to be it tends to be a location or an application. So, you know, this one, well, it's a bit of both, really. It is a bit of a location, but it's also a bit of an application as to how that object is being used, or how that clause is being used. So that aerated block is used on the inner leaf of cavity wall. So it's just giving you a bit more information that is apparent from the title there.
Yeah, and I guess that the principles of say it in one place and then share it in many, so you can specify those values in Chorus, but then you see them on the drawings, you see them on the schedules, and it's coordinated, I guess. Yeah. I mean, we find the NBS tags sufficient for our needs. It does everything we need, and like I say, we now don't use any other tags on our drawings. So what we've done, just to elaborate on some of those, like prefix and suffix, the way we use the tags, we've added a couple of more parameters in there. So these, although they're prefixed NBS, that just means they belong on our NBS tags. They're not really your clauses from NBS point of view, they're our clauses. And we have a type and an instance parameter on every object, so that we've kind of extended your tags a little bit. And so this one here is a good example. So I've clicked on a DPC, and there's a type note in it. So of course, at the moment from NBS, we can't sync things like descriptions through. But what we can do is we can say, well, this preform DPM dampproof course, that's a Uniclass title, and it isn't fully explanatory. It doesn't say, for instance, that this particular type is a gas resistant one. So what we're saying here is we're using a type field just to say this is a gas resistant one with Lapton bonded joints. And then we have an instance parameter as well, and that allows us to say, right, in this very position where this DPC is being used, it's actually stepped and it's being used as a cavity tray. So we've got a minimum 150 rise to form a cavity tray, for instance. So as I say, what that means is we don't get text on our drawings. So you might have said, okay, well, I'll tag that object and then I'll add a bit of text to explain how it's being used. We can suffice, you know, it suffices for us to just use NBS tags with that little extension that we do. And that means we get some very neat drawings, as you can see. We just use NBS tags, and then we supplement that with some legends. So again, rather than writing equivalent or approved on every note on a drawing, which you know you would have done in previous times, and we certainly did with text notes and keynotes and other things that we've done previously, other solutions. So what we do is we get some legends. So these are legends in Revit terms, and we can swap these around and customize these for a project. And that just allows us to state in the corner of the drawing all the things that you might repeat dozens of times on a drawing normally, about substitutions, about accessories. So you know you're not having to mention every time all accessories required as per manufacturer's instructions and all of that. You just write it once in the corner of a drawing, and then that supplements those NBS tags, and we have a complete annotation solution there. Yeah, it's almost as if you've taken the most very, very important things from the prelims and like, stuck it on the drawing to say, okay.
That's right, yeah. Some of that stuff, you know, drawings get sent out without the spec sometimes. I mean, that's that's hard these days because we've only given them spec information, but they certainly get sent out without the preliminaries. And so subcontractors are receiving drawings. They need to see those few basics. Well, what's the substitution policy? You know, am I meant to be including accessories in all of this? So we do like to have that information on the drawings. But as I say, we've found a solution that works for us using legends just to supplement those NBS tags.
And is it possible? Can you show a project where it's like a project specification linked to sort of project drawings? Do you have one of those handy, Chris?
Yeah, I've got a more recent. Well, this is a live project here, so you can see this one's under construction at the moment, and so this one is a current project. It's sorry, I've just closed the view. This is British Waterways building in Nottingham that we're currently working on. It's public knowledge. We've just got planning permission for it, so nothing to hide. But this is an existing warehouse building that we're extending at roof level. And so we're developing the details for this at the moment for tender, and so this is a tendered section through one of the floor details, and we're just tagging this up at the moment. So you can see this one's not quite complete at the moment. Some of these items are currently text. So John, my colleague who's working on this drawing, has decided he's going to take a quick shortcut, put some text on there, and come back and tag those later. So, you know, people like to work in different ways. I've got no problem with that, with putting a few text notes on, and then later in the day going and setting those clauses up and tagging them appropriately. So, you know, that's an approach on a current project.
And can you click on one of those objects, like maybe one of the linings or the?
Yeah, I don't think I've got that spec open. I'll go back to this one because I think I've got this spec open. So for instance, if I click on all of these are custom developed, we've developed lots of detail items that have multiple types on them. And the great thing about having multiple types is that you can then associate those types with individual clauses in the specification. So if I select this one and bring up the NBS window, and one of the things we like to do for the NBS window is we like to have it large like this. So I know some people dock it on the side, but we tend to use the show hide button. So this project is actually, it's linked to a master because this is the pro forma version. If I go into it's actually in the superseded one, but if I just quickly select that object again, now I've got that project open. When I go back to the NBS, it should, there we go. So it looks like a vapor control membrane because it's obviously a set of clauses. So that's the rigid insulation board, and it's got some references out to vapor control membrane and a workmanship clause as well, an execution clause as well. So that is a live link direct to the specification.
Nice. I like the way you just click the button to make it pop up and disappear again, as opposed to having it docked. I guess it depends on screen availability and
it does, yeah. We just like to have that screen real estate, as you say. So it gives you a chance to see the thing without it being kind of squeezed up. But people do it in different ways. If you do squeeze it up, then sometimes it can be hard to see all the information. So we do like to have a larger window and just use the show and hide.
And I think it's a topic for a different webinar, but your masters there, you had 3 or 4 different masters for different sectors, and just to try and give your colleagues the best possible start when creating.
We do, yeah. I mean, to be honest, as a small practice, we struggle to keep these up to date, and you may find that actually a more recent project is being used as a master sometimes, but in principle, yeah, we try to have sector masters because as a multidisciplinary practice, we work in different sectors. We work on education, health, hotels, housing, apartment schemes, student accommodation. We like to have sector masters set up for all of those that we can draw on our projects. Yeah.
And sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but it was quite fascinating.
Okay, sorry.
And the last thing, just and I know we'd love to live in a world where everything was just databases and 3D and in the cloud, but realistically, PDFs are still produced because they're the contractual. What do the PDFs look like when they get exported from Revit?
They can look like sorry, let me find one with them on. So I've got a couple of projects open here. This one is another live project. So we've got a partial draft here. And let me just try and switch to this other tab. This one, for instance, is a tender issue on a recent project. So we've got a couple of PDFs mixed in with the tender drawings there. So we've got preliminaries and an outline specification there. Technically, my colleague Sarah should have labelled these with the full 19650 coding, because before she goes and puts them on Viewpoint or somewhere else, she's going to have to probably update that description at the front. But yeah, we tend to output stuff as a whole specification rather than clause by clause. Once we get to stage 5 on projects, then contractors probably like to break that down a little bit, and maybe output a brick and block specification and a roofing specification in separate packages. But certainly at stage 3 and kind of 4A at tender stage, we tend to keep those as a whole, either an outline or a tender specification, and then a set of preliminaries to go with it.
And you'll keep copies of all of these in the cloud, and is that sort of BIM 360? But then if
that's right. Yeah. So
you push them across.
We use BIM 360 or ACC as our CDE platform internally, and we tend to use that more and more up to kind of stage 4A now, up to tender stage prior to novation, and we like to use it as a full CDE, from stage 3 onwards, where we collaborate with other parties. And obviously we can invite parties into Chorus. We can invite consultants, colleagues, even clients into Chorus to see specifications should we choose to. But everybody on the team has access to ACC and can see the PDF outputs when we update those outputs.
Yeah, oh, fascinating, Chris. Fascinating, Chris. It's always a pleasure to talk and see how you're using NBS and how NBS is interfacing with other tools as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today.
No problem, Stephen. Thank you.
So yeah, just back to me now, just to finish off. So hopefully today's webinar has been of interest. NBS Chorus Designer, so cost-effective offerings for those that want to sort of spread the NBS usage wider across their project, for those wanting to coordinate specifications, models, drawings, and schedules. So, or even you can come in, I think we called it earlier, sort of different hats. So you might be in designer mode where you want to add all the associations and put notes in, and then later on in the day log in as a writer where you want to sort of go into more detail and write the specification and add content to the spec. And just to reinforce full access control. So if you've got someone that's just starting as an architectural technician or an engineering technician, say they can have designer role on this project, but not writer role as well. So please pop a chat in if you'd like to know more. Speak to your NBS account manager if you'd like to have a quote on a bundle of designer roles. And visit the nbs.com where you can download the sample specifications and drawings, find out more about Chorus Designer, and see all of the support articles and videos on how to get the very best out of the plugin, whether you use Revit, AutoCAD, Vectorworks, or Bentley Open Building Designer. Any questions at all, drop us an email. Please give us feedback on the webinar as well, because we want to put together webinars that really are useful for everyone as well. So thanks for your time today, and bye-bye.